I learned it years and years ago fishing around some of the hot water discharges on Lake Norman and things like that. When you have schooling fish all throughout the year, they get a lot of pressure. They're really hard to get to react to anything, and you'll see them come up. They'll just drive you nuts. They'll blow little bitty tiny bait fish out of the water, and you cannot get them to react. So what we do is to take a straight shank hook. You can see a straight shank hook there. This is just lead wire. Okay, this is lead wire. You can pick it up. I know Tackle Warehouse sells it. Bass Pro, some of the fly shops and things like that sell it, but this is lead wire, and you can see I've got one already rigged up there. I've got the lead wire wrapped around the shank of the hook just below the eye, and I'll tell you why I do that in just a second. I wrap it down around 3/4 of the way down the hook. This is actually a 1/0 straight shank. For this situation, I'll use either a 1/0 or a 2/0, depending on the size of the bait. Now here's the soft plastics that I choose, and this is an old school, if anybody crappie fishes out there, you know what this is, old Charlie Brewer Slider grub. Okay, this is in just a pearl white color. The two colors that I stick with are basically pearl and chartreuse. Those are the two colors that I have the most luck with, but it seems to be conditions, based on conditions, they'll react to one a little bit better than the other. If you get them to swirl on the white, switch to the chartreuse, and vice versa. Sometimes there's no rhyme or reason why they want one or the other, but those are the two colors that I've probably had the most success on. All you're going to do is take that straight shank hook, and I'll show you. This is just rigging the little slider grub on it. You may not be, I don't know if you can see me rigging it, but I'll thread it up on there and kind of show you the finished product if I can get it straight. If I don't get it straight, I'm not going to like it, because I'm a perfectionist, and I'll rip one off and get a whole new bait before I screw it up. But that's basically your offering right there. Okay, so it's your straight shank hook with the lead wire on it. Okay, with an exposed hook. The way you're going to fish that bait. Now I fish this bait on typically a longer spinning rod setup, 7.4 to 7.5 foot, medium to medium light action. And the reason I go to a longer rod is because I want to be able to make super long casts. That's also what that lead wire does. Now, yes, there's like some 32nd ounce jig heads and things like that out there, but unless you custom pour those jig heads, when you get to that light of weight, it's hard to find a 1 or 2/0 straight shank hook that I really like. So yes, I could custom make my hooks, or I could pick my custom hook from a big selection of gammies or owners or whatever's out there. I could pick my favorite hook and then just use that wire to wrap around it to give me just enough weight to where I can make a longer cast with that type of setup. And when I go to wake that thing underneath the surface, remember, we're trying to imitate that fleeing shad or that fleeing heron or whatever it is. When I go to wake that thing underneath the surface, it keeps that gives it just enough weight to where it doesn't come out of the water, lose its action, keeps a consistent wake trail behind it, and it looks just like one of those fleeing bait fish. The exposed hook is key. You know, I don't rig it any other way but with an exposed hook, because when that fish comes up there and swirls on it, I want an exposed hook to make sure I get a good hookup. Just another little example I brought of another. This is actually, I believe this is a slider grub also. Just has a different little tail. It has a little bit more wag than the first one I showed you. This is more of a more subtle vibration. This one has a little bit more wag in it. Just two of my personal favorites that I've used over the years. And chartreuse, pearl white, straight shank hook. I know there's probably gonna be some questions on the end about this. I've probably confused some people on rigging this thing, but there again, straight shank hook, 1/0, 2/0. Those are a couple of the grubs that I use. Now you can experiment with all different types of grubs out there. I've even, you know, with the Kitex and the Lunker Hunt finesse swim bait that I use, the paddle tail style swim baits out there now, I've used some of the little 2.8s and done very well with the same type technique. But sometimes that bait has a little bit more wag, and when I go to wake it really fast, it becomes a little bit more inconsistent. When I use that style bait right there, it creates that real subtle wake behind it, and it looks just like one of those tiny bait fish fleeing from the school.